Ya, lah berat nih. Okay, good morning everyone. So today is the day for English presentation. We already have our first contestant, who's Jodi. But before we commence the first presentation, I would like to first introduce the panel of judges today for the English presentation. The first one is Professor Ari, is the recently appointed as a professor, and then we also have Dr. Choki, and then we have another judge, but she's not attending for the first and the second session, so she will, I think, come at 11. She is Buteo. Unfortunately, she will not judge the first contestant today. And then we also have the student representation here from BPM, Aksara. And I think for the first, we will begin our first presentation by Jodi Nicholas Simanjuntak. His paper entitled "No One is Left Behind: Mitigating Unemployment of Workers with Disabilities Through Disaccess or Disability Access as a One-Stop Shop for Disability Employment in Indonesia." So Jodi, you have 15 minutes to present your ideas, and then afterward it will be followed up by discussions and Q&A from the judges.
Okay.
If everything is ready for you from your side?
Yes, everything is ready.
Okay, you have 15 minutes. The floor is yours.
The greatness of a nation is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable citizens. Good morning, fellow panelists, esteemed faculty members, and every colleague who's watching this. My name is Jodi Nicholas Majuntak, as the finalist of Mahasiswa Presentasi year 2025. Today, I'm very glad to present my solution on This Access, a one-stop platform for disability employment. First, we'll talk about what is the problem that we are discussing here today. Fellow panelists, these are not just numbers. These are people. 9.4 million, 8 out of 10, 90%, all these numbers, while they are data and statistics, in reality, these are people. These are people who are impacted by the systemic problems that exist in Indonesia regarding people with disability. Before we begin, I would like to first clarify what is persons with disability. By law, persons with disability are people with long-term physical, mental, intellectual, and sensoric limitations. And by law, and as our Constitution has stated, these people have the right of equal opportunity, like all of us. This opportunity includes the opportunity to get professions, to get jobs. However, this is not the case in reality. Around 9.4 million, 53% of all persons with disability in the productive working age are unemployed. These people have no jobs. And worse yet, even if they receive jobs, around 8 out of 10, specifically 85% of persons with disabilities who are employed work in the informal sectors. These are sectors with no clear business licensing, no clear legal protections, no clear standard for wages and such. This is proven with a data statistic that 85% of persons with disabilities who are employed have wages below 2 million IDR, 2 million rupiah per month. This is way below the national average on what is a standardized wage. And even then, even when private sectors attempt to provide employment training for persons with disabilities, in statistic, 90% of persons with disabilities do not attend these trainings. Only 10% of them actually attend trainings that are provided by the government or private sectors. Therefore, to paint a picture, this means that it is already difficult to get a job as a person with disability. Even if you get a job, you are more likely to be prone to discrimination in the form of wages and other form of social stigma. And even when you want to provide training, or if you want to receive training, these trainings are not inclusive for you. These do not have proper facilities, do not have proper experts who are able to train you. That's why in statistic, only 90% of them don't even attend these trainings. And so the question arises, why does this happen? The Constitution definitely provides equal opportunity. In fact, we have Law 8 of 2016 specifically for people with disability. Yet it is not effective. Why so? Before I move on to the main problems, I would just like to ask a small question for everyone here. Does anyone know here about the employment quotas of persons with disability? The employment quota of persons with disability, that companies have to have a certain percentage of persons with disabilities. Okay, thank you. Aksara knows. But the majority here, and I would like to believe everyone does not know that this quota exists. Why? Because it's not implemented effectively. There are three main systemic issues that I've analyzed and identified in my current problem. First is the ineffective quota system. As we have just demonstrated here, no one knows this law exists. No one knows that employment quotas exist. And this is reflected in practice that only 0.8% of companies in Indonesia actually comply with these employment quotas. 0.8% out of every company in Indonesia. That means 99.2% of them have not thought, have not known, and have not implemented this employment quota. And so the next logical step is, well, what's the consequence? Nothing. There's no consequence. There's no implementation. There's no sanctions. There's no enforcement. A report by the Ministry of Manpower stated that there's a 1:11 ratio of supervisors to companies that they have to check. This is severely lacking in manpower and resources to actually check every single company whether they comply with these employment quotas. And therefore, due to these technical issues, the law on employment quotas, while a good idea, is just that. It's just a good idea, but it's not there in practice. Second problem, a multi-sectoral approach. In Law 8 of year 2016, it is stated, as reported by the International Labour Organization, this law concerns around 30 government sectors with 25 ministries. Imagine 25 ministries having to coordinate each other to provide equal opportunity for persons with disabilities. While each ministry, each government sector may have their own separate ideas, separate programs, there is no main centralized approach to provide a national scale solution for persons with disabilities, specifically regarding employment. And the National Disability Committee, or the KND, that is supposed to act as a coordinator of these efforts, have not been effective in practice by their law, their authority, and also by their budget. If anyone here has read the recent news, it is stated that the budget for the National Disability Committee has been cut from 5 billion rupiah to only 500 million. A massive cut due to the efficiency. They already don't have enough resources, and now they're being given less. How is this commission specifically made to coordinate efforts ever to hope to achieve that function? Therefore, even though there are multiple efforts, there are multiple initiatives by various government sectors, it's all separate, and there's no centralized approach to actually solve the main issue. Third and last is this lack of information. This is general for both employers and employee. They just don't know anything about how to hire, how to employ persons with disabilities. A survey done by JBDI, a network of business that aspires to increase employment of disabilities, found that 88% of companies don't actually know how to employ persons with disability. They may have the idea, they may have the initiative, but they just don't know how to. On the other side of the spectrum, persons with disabilities don't know how to get proper jobs. There's no clear job vacancies. There's no clear training. There's no clear information on whether certain jobs are open for persons with disabilities, and therefore there's just a clear lack of what's going on for both employers and employees. Due to these three problems, the number of unemployment will just continue and even continue to rise. Therefore, for today, I propose the idea of This Access. This Access is a one-stop platform that integrates various governmental functions for disability employment. And there are 5 main features here to solve the 3 issues I've mentioned previously. First is job matching. With the job matching feature that is helped by AI, this is to provide exclusive job vacancies that are specifically open for persons with disabilities. Because it cannot be doubted that there are certain jobs that are too risky or too high profile or too dangerous for persons with disabilities. And therefore, this job matching feature specifically provide this feature for persons with disability. This is benchmarked by similar government initiatives such as Career Hub that is also already done by the Ministry of Manpower. Secondly, is a compliance system. Not only focusing on the employees, we also have to focus on the employers. As we have discussed previously, the employment quota has no enforcement, has no mechanisms, and definitely an increase of budget is not possible. And so, with a compliance system in This Access, there's 3 functions that it will have. First, a positive list. This will list all the companies that have complied with their employment quotas or are exemplary regarding their employment of persons with disabilities. Second is a negative list. These are the reports of companies who do not meet their quotas or have been reported for discrimination of persons with disabilities. And lastly is a feature on a whistleblower system that is benchmarked with the KPK system for anonymous reports that will be verified regarding potential discrimination or falsified data for persons with disability employment. This will be done mainly through self-reports of each company, but then there will be a red flag feature in which reports, whether internal or whether be independent sources, they may check whether these companies, specifically high-profile companies, big multi-corporation companies, have actually fulfilled their obligations to fulfill their employment quota and not just falsify their data. There are also additional functions of This Access, which is an integrated data. There are 10 to 20, there's 10 of 22% of all Indonesians are people with disability. That's a huge gap in number, 10 to 22%. Why? Because as reported by the United Nations, there's no clear data, no clear integrated data on exactly how many people with disabilities are there in Indonesia. There's no integrated effort, and there's no clear data to find these. Therefore, we don't even know right now the question on how many persons with disabilities are there in Indonesia. And therefore, with an integrated data that will be governed by the Ministry of Social Affairs, this will be an integrated data by multiple ministries such as the BPS, the Ministry of Manpower, the Ministry of Health, to have one singular data on how many persons with disabilities are there. So they may apply to different government programs, different government social benefits with one central data, and they don't have to register multiple times just to get the same social benefit program from various ministries. Second and third and fourth are the information hub and consultation. These are just places to get a centralized place for information regarding employing persons with disabilities, what they may need, what sorts of facilities they may require to be employed. And consultations are both for employers who seek to employ persons with disabilities and also employees that have troubles with their career, their legal problems, or others that they may need to consult with experts for. These will be collaborated with various NGOs that are trained experts in their field on how to provide proper advice for persons with disabilities. And so the next question would be, would this work? If a confession I have to make is that my solution is not 100% creative. There's a clear, concrete example of this in practice, which is SG Enable in Singapore. They have implemented a similar system, a one-stop solution for disability employment, and in 3 years, they managed to employ 900 workers every year and provide 4,200 workers with training through the SG Enable app. But besides that, the next question would be, what's so innovative about this app? Different from the SG Enable, we now have a compliance system. So we don't only focus on the employees, but the employers as well, to reduce the social stigma that exists in society. Secondly, this is also made to contextualize the issues and the requirements that are needed in Indonesia. And this app, this solution, has not existed. There has been similar solutions such as Career Hub, LinkedIn, Headhunters, but none of them have been specifically made to accommodate persons with disabilities for their employment issues. Therefore, with the three key stakeholders of NGOs, governments, and companies, we can provide a one-stop platform where persons with disabilities can actually have equal opportunity, equal access to to their employment. The reason why we don't only focus on the employees themselves is because through the theory of the social disability model, we cannot only expect to improve, to train, to educate the employees, the persons with disabilities. We also have to recognize that society itself do not provide access. Society itself is a disabling factor of persons with disability. And therefore, with my solution, we provide both solutions for the employees and the employers so they may have equal opportunity to get their employee, the rights they have for employment. If I may convey one message for my presentation today, is that this solution, this entire presentation, is not an act of charity. It's not a noble idea and not a noble act. This idea, this solution, merely restores a fundamental rights that we as society have forgotten to provide for them. That is all for my presentations. Thank you very much, and I expect many criticism and questions for the following session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodi. A round of applause, please. So we will move to some commentaries from panelists. The first one I would like to give the floor to Professor Ari. You may know. 45 minutes to discuss. So all of us overall. Yeah, for all the judges. So yeah, we still have 45 minutes to give commentaries, comments. 15 minutes. Yeah.
Jodi, thank you for your creative idea and okay. Thank you very much, Jodi, for your creative idea.
Sorry, Professor. I think you need to turn it off first.
Oh.
Okay. Yep. Sorry.
Yes, it's been a while that I haven't heard this idea of try to empower our fellow persons with disabilities. Yeah, but one light questions. This is out of curiosity. Singapore uses the term SG enable, and you're using this access, which comes from the disability, right? So how does this development of finding the politically correct terms? So are we using what and different ability or still using disability? Please.
Yes, thank you for the question. So this curious question pertains regarding the title of the application, because Singapore uses SG Enable. Yes, I've workshopped a few ideas for the website itself, and seeing the recent trends of Indonesian websites, usually we combine two main ideas regarding what the app should be. And that's why I named this access, which provides the two main things that we seek to provide through the website, which is access for this disability, or Indonesian, disabilitas akses. Therefore, with this solution, this name and title of the website, we provide to have an accessible website for all persons with disabilities and for all services regarding compliance, training, job matching for persons with disabilities, so they may access these services in one central platform.
Okay, so you're offering an app for persons with disabilities.
Yes.
Okay, how can you rectify the access to your apps with disabilities?
Right. Thank you. Fantastic question. And this is something that I've considered multiple times on how to make the app or the website actually accessible to persons with disabilities, which is our main target. And this, we refer to the WCAG, or the Web Content Accessibility Guide. I think this is a international guide on web content, on how to make it more accessible for persons with disabilities. Now the latest model is WCAG 2.2. That was released last November. And this web content accessibility guidelines provide a checklist on what is the standard for websites or web contents that may be accessible for persons with disabilities. This includes regarding whether there's an audio feature, whether there has a clear contrast in colors, and the other general international guidelines on how to make a website actually accessible for persons with disability. This is a guideline made by the Web Accessible Initiative, an international organization, an NGO international organization, where they provide a list of best practices on how to make the website accessible. And so this will be the guidelines we refer to when making the website to make sure that it is accessible. And of course, we shall be doing multiple consultations with various organizations to actually pilot test whether this website is accessible in practice or not.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't put that into your paper. That explanation, you have that put in your paper.
Apologies if there are technical issues in the summary of the paper. In the full paper in Indonesian, I've mentioned it as well, the WCAG guidelines.
Okay.
But of course, apologies if it was
All
missed
right.
in the
Okay.
summary.
In my opinion, that kind of explanation, even though it is brief, you need to point it out as well, because you want to give access for those who maybe have a different
I see.
access. Okay, right.
Okay.
So regarding the lesson learned that you took from Singapore, yeah. When we're trying to take a lessons for something that we can use for ourselves, we need to ensure that this comparable, right? And I'm not quite sure in what way that the Singaporean lesson, yeah, would be comparable to Indonesia, because Singapore is just an island, very tiny place. They have a different economic and social level according to Indonesia. Geographically, of course, hugely different. So how can you propose that we can learn from Singapore?
Okay. So the question on how Singapore is an applicable comparative study, for this I provide two main answers. Firstly is the idea of SG Enable has been implemented in Indonesia, but on different sectors. As I've mentioned previously, Indonesia, we have Career Hub that is made and operated by the Ministry of Manpower. This is a similar concept on job matching, consultation, information that collaborates with various NGOs and private sectors. The difference is Career Hub is made for employees in general. It's not made specifically for persons with disabilities, and therefore there is still a gap in how accessible this website is for persons with disability. But it has worked and it has been implemented in Indonesia. What we're attempting to do here is that we make a follow-up or a type of similar website with Career Hub that is specifically made to accommodate the needs of persons with disabilities. And so there's already a benchmarking in Indonesia. Secondly, even though there are certain technical differences with Singapore and Indonesia, Indonesia has been very supportive regarding initiatives regarding persons with disabilities. This is found whether legally, that we have laws in place, we have ratified conventions to ensure the rights of persons with disabilities. This is also seen in various fragmented initiatives by different government ministries to help persons with disabilities in employment, and seen in the various amount of NGOs such as SIGAP or the organizations on people with visual impairment that all have similar ideas with SG Enable to provide accessible services for persons with disabilities getting into the labor force. The difference is it's not centralized. And therefore, taking a clear example on a different sector regarding the Career Hub, considering that there's already initiatives in place, what my solution is proposing is to just centralize all that solution, to centralize those ideas and consolidate it in one website, that is this access. And therefore, there's already Practice Indonesia, there's already the foundation laid in Indonesia. Therefore, I believe that this is applicable in Indonesia, as there are similar initiatives already in place to provide this type of service.
So just to follow up, you're mentioning interchangeably between website and app. So is this website or an app?
Apologies if I was unclear. The proper term is website.
Website, not an app.
Yes.
Okay, because, well, in my understanding, app and website is quite different.
Right.
Right? Okay, it's a website.
It's a website.
Okay, right. Okay, good. I get that the idea. Maybe for the last inquiries from me, I was thinking about the compliance or non-compliance of the law, which it has to be a ramification of the tag that you are giving, no one left behind. The law has mentioned that it has a quota of at least, right? At least 2% for employing persons with disabilities. But as you mentioned, that's not clear about the data, and especially with the non-compliance. Yeah. I was thinking whether or not it is possible, yeah, to embed that kind of live data that's showing which company that has not fulfilled this obligation. And I'm not, well, I haven't read the law, but I'm not quite sure whether there has a non-compliance mechanism there. So I was thinking whether this website can be one of the way to show non-compliance and compliance in order to help the implementation of the law. What do you think?
Thank you for the question as well. Regarding the implementation, regarding the compliance and non-compliance system, there are various steps on how it looks like in practice. Before that, to clarify, yes, Law 8 of 2016 does provide that quota system. It's specifically 2% for state-owned or regional-owned enterprises and 1% for private companies. And according to Law 8 of 2016, there should be sanctions, administrative sanctions, such as the freezing of the business or the revocation of various licenses, and even fines for these companies. However, there's no implementation because, again, it is very difficult for one person to go to 11 companies, check each one of them on whether they comply or not. There's a severe lack of manpower and budget. And definitely, the solution cannot be more budget, as the recent trend in governmental measures as of recently. And therefore, what does this access provide? It provides, first, a self-reporting system. So companies, all companies, are required to self-report themselves on whether they have employed persons with disabilities according to their quota. They have to mention how many total employees they have and how much of them are persons with disabilities. And they also provide relevant data such as the identification of those persons and how does it look like in the quota. Of course, this will be subject to various risks, such as the falsification of data. That is something that we cannot ignore. And therefore, instead of checking every single company, every single small company on whether they fulfill their quota, this access provides a red flag feature in which first, internal audits by this access team, by the Ministry of Manpower. Secondly, whether there are independent reports from either reporting associations or various NGOs regarding most typically a big company on whether they have employed according to their quota. These red flags will be the ones that this access targets on who to check. And this will be most likely big companies that have a lot of employees and should employ a larger amount of persons with disabilities and should have the money to actually provide such facilities. And therefore, with this red flags, there's a more targeted approach to investigating these companies to check whether they fulfilled their data, their employment quota, and to then enact the appropriate sanctions according to the follow-up governmental regulation or
of disability law and how it relates to employment in Indonesia. This is really impressive. Thank you. But my question is, I'll start with more technical before coming up with more philosophical questions. So you mentioned about using Singapore's SG Enable as your inspirations, your reference. And you mentioned there's no or lack of a feature in the Singapore's SG enables, so you added one features regarding the compliance mechanisms. So my questions, in additions to lack of that features, what are the lessons that you learn from the Singapore SG enable, and how do you use that lessons to improve, to inform your idea in designing this website or apps?
Thank you, Bang Choki, for the question. For the lessons I've learned from SG Enable and how it reflects on the solutions I presented, there are three main lessons I've learned from SG Enable. First is a one-stop platform. Similar to Indonesia, prior to 2018, where SG Enable was made, the idea of providing employment of persons with disabilities were fragmented. It was scattered between various ministries of social affairs, of manpower, and etc. And so SG Enable sought to provide various programs and services that already exist, such as consultation, such as information central hub, such as integrated data and job matching from various ministries and programs, and combined it into one place. And they found success in making one place for persons with disabilities to access all those features and services. Instead of going to 5 different ministries, registering for 5 different programs for just similar services. So that's one, an integrated place for all the services. Secondly is multi-stakeholder approach. SG Enable, one of the main contributions to their success was how they collaborate with NGOs, with companies, with other international organizations to make their website successful. This is seen as they have a specific website on how to become a collaborator or a partner for SG Enable, specifically in their website. This is for NGOs and inclusive companies that seek to contribute to help the idea of employing persons with disabilities. And as of now, they have around 8 or 10 main partners in their website that they've mentioned regarding organizations and companies that collaborate and provide assistance for the success of SG Enable. And so that is one of the other lessons I took from SG Enable, that to make this one-stop platform successful is to not forget all the efforts that exist previously, whether it's NGOs, inclusive companies, or other organizations. Third and lastly is to provide incentive. Of course, we can't just provide sanction for every single company that doesn't meet their employment quota. That's just we're saying that you don't meet your employment quota, you're bad. There should be incentive as well. It should be seen that, yes, it is good to meet your employment quota, to provide equal opportunity to persons with disabilities. And therefore, with their enabling mark, they actually provide incentives instead of providing punishment for companies that didn't comply. By providing incentives for compliance, companies that has this enabling mark have it easier to access to government incentives, easier to government access for other benefits. That makes it easier for them to provide the facilities and access to persons with disabilities. And so with those 3 lessons on a one-stop platform, a multi-stakeholder approach, and providing incentives instead of punishment, I reflected that in my solution as this access a one-stop platform with multi-stakeholders such as the government, NGO, and companies, and also provide incentives as well, in addition to punishment for non-compliance. Those are the lessons.
Okay, following up your, thank you for your explanations. I also learned a lot from your comparisons, your explanations about the Singapore's SG enabled experience. So my questions will be, so is Singapore SG enable a government-run app or website?
Yes, SG Enable is a government-run website.
And what about your proposal?
My proposal have two potential routes, two potential solutions for it. First, ideally, since this concerns a lot of government functions, a lot of government data, this will be done with a pitching to the government that even though it may be run by a separate team, it should be governed or a part of the initiative of the government. But secondly, it should also work as an NGO or a private solution, because the point of SG Enable is to have a multi-stakeholder approach. Even if it is not governed under the government, it should at least have partnership. It should have collaboration with the government to ensure that this website is successful, as the features themselves are a reflection of current initiatives just made more accessible in one integrated place. So that is my answer.
Okay, so your high call, this access will be run by the Indonesian government. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Which agencies do you think in mind?
Referring to Law 8 of 2016, the main programs, the main issues regarding persons with disabilities will be under the Ministry of Social Affairs, the Kementerian Sosial. That should be the main ministry to govern the website, as they themselves also obtain, they also possesses the main information management system for persons with disabilities. So it should be under the Ministry of Social Affairs.
Okay. Thank you. Next questions. You mentioned about the social model of disability in your theory that shifts from charity-based to sort of empowerment-based. How do you see this access falls into?
I see this access as a combination of both the medical model of disability and the social model of disability. To clarify, under the medical model, of course, the idea is that we need to empower, we need to raise up persons with disabilities. They have problems, and we need to help them. We need to, the harsh word is, to assist them for them to have equal opportunity. However, under the social model, it is also considered, it is also taken into account that the problem doesn't only lie with the person, but also its surrounding social factors. For example, if a place does not have any wheelchair accessible, is it upon the person to improve themselves? Is it upon them, or is it society or the people around that refuses to make social places accessible to them? So it is the society that, quote unquote, disables them. Therefore, and also taking into account various criticism I received from the first presentation, this access provides both. We empower persons with disabilities to be more competent, to be more trained, to be more able, but we also have to recognize that society needs to be more inclusive, needs to pay attention more to them, and should ensure as much as possible provide them the rights that they're supposed to have. And so this access is a combination of both, of bottom up on raising the person with disabilities, but also top down on ensuring that we as society do not forget about them.
And how does this access do the second job?
On the second job, that is mainly seen to three features of the ones that I mentioned. First is the compliance and non-compliance system. There's also various criticism in my previous presentation that we should focus on training the person with disabilities instead of sanctions and compliance system. However, what I like to ask is this. Even if a person with disability has all the competence in the world, if the social stigma still exists, if employers still view them as slow, lazy workers, it wouldn't change anything. Therefore, with the compliance system, companies need to take responsibility. They need to make sure that their company is inclusive. That's why there are incentives if they comply with the quota, and disincentive and punishment if they don't comply. So that's one of the ways of making sure that the companies are more inclusive. And additionally, we have the information hub and also the consultation so that employers who want to employ them but don't know how to are given education, are given advice from experts on how to properly employ persons with disabilities, how to cater to their needs, how to provide them the facilities to employ them, and various other informational help that, as of now, most companies do not know. So that is how we also made sure that the society itself pays attention to persons with disability.
I don't want to interrupt or take your minutes. Just want to make last comment. So my questions, my questions that I asked to you is relating how to balance your solutions between neoliberal approach, individualistic charity based, by assuming them, getting the access, and how to pinpoint the blame to this government. So how does the government provide, and what's the responsibility of the government to empower and to fulfill their rights according to the rights. So if you take that issues into considerations, you might shape your solutions to balance both perspectives.
Thank you so much, Bang Choki.
Okay, thank you so much, Bang Choki. Thank you so much, Jodi, for your presentation. Yeah, I've learned a lot from your presentation, and I believe that this is very real and very unique. You offer a lot of solutions that I think applicable, but let me just clear up some of the things that I believe it's worth to ask. Can you go back to the key stakeholders slide? Okay, there we have NGOs, government, and companies. Can you guess one more key stakeholder that, in my opinion, very important in order to give the equal access to the PWD? This is the clue. The clue is that if we want to get into one company, we are competing to a lot of candidates, and each of candidates have their own degree, whether it's bachelor, master, or something. The higher the degree, the higher our chance to be accepted. Using that perspective, can you guess what one more key stakeholder that I think needs to be involved?
Very interesting input, Aksara. I'll take a shot at it. Is the for $100 is the key stakeholder educational institution?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Exactly. Academic institution, university. Have you ever heard of something about inequality between those who are people with disability with non-disability comparison for the chance that they can get the scholarship or something?
Well, specifically regarding scholarships and such, I have not found that data specifically. However, I have found data from the International Labour Organization that it is true, as you have concerned, that there are more amounts, there is a higher percentage of persons with disabilities who do not reach higher education. In fact, the most amount of the highest education level that persons with disabilities have obtained is around elementary school level. So that is the statistic.
Yeah, it is so pathetic because we know that all of the companies need to, to look for people that matches their criteria. If the majority of PWD people in Indonesia don't have the same education level as those who are with non-disability, how can they get the same opportunity as well? So my next question is, how would you align this idea to your proposed app?
Thank you, Aksara, for the wonderful input. For this, I provide two answers. First, the main point of the information hub is to centralize where persons with disabilities can access training programs and vocational training that is provided by both the government and private sectors. It is true, while most persons with disabilities are not in higher education, however, this is usually supplemented by them having access to vocational training and education that is specifically to enter the workforce. Therefore, with the information hub and the consultation feature, persons with disability may have one place to access training programs, vocational training, that is specifically to increase their competence, that is accessible and that is compatible with the current vacancy, the job vacancy that expect a certain level of competency. But as your input have greatly enlightened me, it is true that the Educational Institute is also one other key stakeholder that we should consider, that not only focusing on vocational training, but we also focus that in basic, Educational Institute should also provide easier access to educate persons with disabilities, besides vocational training. So that would be my answer.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if I may share some of my experience relating to people with disability, I learned that people with disability very difficult to get into the university. For example, our university, Universitas Indonesia, I heard a story of person with disability telling me that he has already got the scholarship from one of the institution in Japan, but he was asking me how to get into UI when actually he has already had this scholarship. But you know, in order to get into our university, there's mechanism such as CMARC or invitation, and he couldn't get into UI just because they don't have mechanism for disability to conduct the test, or to have the test in the university mechanism. Okay, my second question actually it relates to the previous one that Bang Choki asked. It's about how open this access to government. Let's just begin by questioning you, how would be the funding of this app?
Okay, thank you, Aksara. Before I answer your first question, I would like to touch up a bit on your input. It is true that regarding scholarship and education information regarding persons with disabilities have been very hard, and therefore, taking into account your input, then I do believe that this information hub and consultation should also be a place where various accessible scholarship for persons with disabilities should be posted, so they may know that there are such opportunities. Thank you very much.
That's what I mean.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, on your answer on how open it should be regarding funding, first, the funding of this website will have two key stakeholders. First is, of course, the government, and secondly are the NGOs and also inclusive companies, the private sectors. The reason why this funding is very feasible is that first, it's not that expensive. Operating and creating a website actually doesn't take that much money. It should take around 46 million rupiah that I've checked from various websites on creating custom websites, like as Webslingers and Webnesia, on how to operate and fund a website that is of complex detail, and around it should have 46 million or 45 million rupiah. And to acquire the funding, of course, we should pitch to the government regarding this idea, this solution, and why they would want to help this is because this provides two things that they like. One, it provides a mechanism under compliance that they already have a problem for. Secondly, it's cheap. It's cheap because in the current trend of government of having efficiency in their budget, maintaining a website will be one of the most cheap ways to provide such mechanisms, but also a budget efficient mechanism. And for companies and NGOs, of course, there's already various initiatives such as the Indonesia Business Network for Disability People. These networks and NGOs already have various initiatives to help persons with disability, such as sponsoring or partnering with various initiatives of the government or private sectors. And therefore, this will be also an idea that we pitch to them on, hey, now we have one place for all the services, all the initiatives that they have already started. And so funding this would be very beneficial to the vision that they aspire to have. So that's first on funding.
Okay, supposed to be you can get a full support of funding from the government. Don't you think that you will be you have some kind of special relationship with the government? Are you aware of how dangerous it is for the data protection of people that, who uses your app? And how would your strategy on the data protection when you get the full support from the government?
Say that we have the full protection, the full support of the government for this website. That would ease other issues such as cybersecurity or data protection, because currently Indonesia has the BSSN, the Badan Siber, and so this agency may collaborate with us to ensure that there is a safe level of data protection according to regulation and also for best practices to ensure that such data would not be breached, would not be stolen or misused. And of course, that would be something that we pilot test before making this website on a national scale to ensure that data protection and there's no breach of potential data from the website.
Okay, thank you. Interesting that you mentioned about BSSN. I don't know what it is in English, but can you go back to again to the key stakeholders slide? Okay, one of the stakeholders is government. You mentioned about BSSN and Ministry of Social Affairs. I'm just curious. Can you mention three government institution that you would be firstly take into account your app and try to make collaboration with?
Yes, the three main government that we will be collaborating with to make this website a success is the Ministry of Social Affairs, the Ministry of Manpower, and the National Disability Committee. Even though I didn't mention regarding data protection and the BSSN, these are the three key government agencies to realize my solution. Of course, the Ministry of Social Affairs are the main governing body to have to govern and operate initiatives regarding persons with disabilities. Secondly, the Ministry of Manpower is, of course, another important stakeholder, as this is regarding the employment of persons with disabilities. And so this is also concerns regarding manpower law and various companies and industries that is governed under the Ministry of Manpower. And lastly, the National Disability Committee is, of course, the main committee that is supposedly made to coordinate these efforts. So that would be another key stakeholder.
Thank you. But as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I mean, I'm looking for the word the National National Committee on Disability. I have read the law and it concerns me. And as far as I'm concerned, it isn't written yet in your paper. So yeah, I was afraid that you're not aware of the National Committee on Disability. Can I have one more question?
Yes.
Okay. My last question would be: you mentioned about the criminal sanctions. Okay. How would the compliance of the persons with disability have anything to do with corruption?
Thank you, Aksara. To clarify, if there's apologies if there's any misunderstanding, the sanctions I mentioned, and according to Law 8 of 2016, are administrative sanctions. These are the freezing of the company, the revocation of license, and fines. There are no
Okay,
criminal...
sorry to interrupt. Haven't you mentioned about KPK, which is the Corruption Commission?
Yes, apologies again if there are any misunderstanding. The point of mentioning KPK was a benchmarking or to provide an example of the whistleblower system, a mechanism to anonymously report if there's any potential problems or a breach of obligation. I'm not using KPK as a stakeholder or a corruption as a feature of this access. What I'm merely trying to explain is that this access will have a whistleblower system that is similar to the whistleblower system that is done through the KPK website, but it has no correlation with corruption. So sorry for the misunderstanding.
Yeah. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for your further explanation. I believe it's enough for my session. Thank you.
So for all the panelists, we still have 6 minutes. If you still no, but it was not the panelists. We will have Bu Teo, but she's
Yeah.
not here yet. So if there's no more questions, I think it wraps up your presentation. It was fascinating, indeed, and I think you can just wrap all of your belongings, and then yeah, we wish you the best of luck for your Mapres. Thank you, Jodi.
Thank you, everyone.
So for the next contestant, we have Sabrina. Yeah. Please make yourself comfortable first. In front. Oh, okay. Just to remind all the panelists, so please use the mic properly. Provari, please use the mic close. Hold the mic close since we are live stream now. And then yeah, I think that's the message from from the comedies. Ini bobotnya nanti baru dijumlahkan. Iya, dari ini bawah ya. Ya, betul. Di bawah itu. Ini persentasenya. Ya, ya. Okay, for the second contestant today, we will have Sabrina Hanata. She will be presenting about. She will be presenting a creative idea proposal entitled "Authentic versus Counterfeit Batik: Suppressing Counterfeit Batik Circulation Through Motif Codification and Supply Chain Recording in Batik Blockchain, as well as the imposition of luxury tax." Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So you have 15 minutes to present, and then afterward we will have a 45-minute discussion. Okay, without further ado, the floor is yours. You may start your presentation.
Thank you, Bang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, dear respected judges and committees. I am Sabrina Hana Anata, the finalist of the Most Outstanding Student of Faculty of Law 2025. Dear respected judges, today I present a book with beautiful patterns. The left one is Mega Mendung, a batik pattern from Cirebon. It describes about clouds. Meanwhile, this one is actually a similar pattern with clouds, but this is from the traditional Chinese tradition. Therefore, this one is not batik pattern even though they both look alike. Next up, this one is a modification of Slobok batik. Unfortunately, this modification is incorrect. Why? Because the flowers here is actually from Truntung batik, which symbolize the blooming love. Meanwhile, Slovak batik means sorrow. So even though they both have a great appearance, unfortunately in meanings they have contradiction. Therefore, here's also why I upheld this issue regarding the counterfeit batik, because we need to protect the authenticity of our batik. Therefore, dear respected judges, I bring up the issue of authentic batik versus counterfeit batik, suppressing counterfeit batik circulation through batik blockchain. But what is actually counterfeit batik? Well, counterfeit batik is any fabric that does not meet any circumstances that is considered as real batik. The first circumstance is regarding the production technique. So we can claim that the printed is not actually the real batik if we're considering from the production technique. But if we're seeking from the second perspective, then the printed batik is actually the real batik, but we could say it more like semi-batik instead of the 100% authentic batik. Meanwhile, any fabric that does not meet either criterion is classified as counterfeit batik. Now we're moving on to the background why the issue is bring up to this table. Is first from the enactment of the Permendag A 2024 that give impact to the textile imports that increase in a number of 20%. Other than that, it also impact an unfortunate condition which batik exports reduced for about 8% in 2024, as well as the termination of public industry workers in about 11,000 workers. Other than that, two bodies under Kementerian Perindustrian also gave an issue regarding the counterfeit batik. They said that imported counterfeit batik increased in 2024, as well as most people find difficulties in differentiating between the authentic and the counterfeit batik. So our target here is to suppress counterfeit batik circulation in Indonesia, and what we need is a facility to make it easier to distinguish between the counterfeit and also the authentic batik. We already have some tools that get our back, of course, our Indonesian constitution and also other instruments from international, for example, ISSCR, the SDG Target 11.4, and as well as the theory of law sovereignty that makes us able to enact any law inside of our country, and other states need to respect our policy. And I will explain regarding the batik blockchain that consists of two features. The first feature is batik patterns codification, and the second one is batik supply chain record. We will first discuss about the patterns codification. So in here, the BPS PJI under the Kementerian Perindustrian will codify all of the batik patterns throughout Indonesia, accounting for about 5,849 patterns that will be codified, gathered in a blockchain. Then the blockchain will be provides a link and also a QR code that will be accessible to the public, so public can use it to see an all-in-one platform regarding the batik patterns throughout Indonesia. This is the more sophisticated how it works is that the BPSPJ will gather all of the patterns into a batik blockchain, and the data that they include, including the image, the keywords, the names, the creator, and any other relevance regarding the patterns. Next, they will create a link and QR code that will be accessible to the public, that this link and QR code will be provided in the website, for example, the website of Kementerian Perindustrian and any other ministries that related to batik. And then the public, when they want to buy a batik, then they can capture the batik first and upload it to the batik blockchain search engine, and the search engine will actually look up which batik is actually matched with the batik that they want to buy. The search engine will give us 4 outputs. The first is batik, means that that batik is really a real one and used properly. And the second one is misused batik pattern. It means that the batik pattern is correct. Unfortunately, it's just not properly used. The third one is batik-like pattern. It means that the search engine could not recognize the batik pattern, but at least it has 70% similarity. And the last one is not batik. It means that it is far from similarity with the original batik that is already provided in the database of the blockchain. After discussing the first feature, now we're moving on to the second feature, which is supply chain record. This supply chain record only will be implemented to the batik, the original batik, which are hand-drawn, stamped, and combination batik, and only will be implemented by foreign producers and the big domestic producers, including pattern making, coloring, and distribution. And how it works: first, we as the government do not need to create our own platform of blockchain because the producers will make their own self, or at least they can use the ready-to-use blockchain that already provided worldwide. Then the government need to do to have an access from all of the producers, and then they will create a central portal so the public can access only from the central portal. Next, all of the batik that's sold by these producers need to have a tag providing the token of the blockchain as well as the link and QR code so the public can ensure that it is the authentic one before purchasing it. Of course, for this implementation, we need socialization. We can use social medias, communication with batik artisans, communities, and also big companies, especially those located in batik industry centers. And we could also do socialization through cultural education in formal institutions, either to schools, universities, or even to companies, for example, BUMN for their employees. Regarding the budget for this implementation, then it is a negligible budget comparing to the Kementerian Perindustrian budget in 2025. It only costs about 0.04% from its budget, and we also expecting a source of income from the sponsors. So therefore, the spending from the Kementerian Perindustrian will be less than this. And what are the impact that we are expecting is first, of course, the reduction in the circulation of counterfeit batik in terms of patterns for up to 57%. This is actually the most optimist number because it is calculated from the number of survey that said that there are about 64% of people in Indonesia who already have the awareness of the importance of the authenticity of batik. Other than that, we also hope that we can obtain a test result from the program before we expand this program to the small businesses. For the continuity, we expect that we could also implement this not only to the big producers but also to the small businesses, and we also hope that we could reach more audience, not only for those who already have the awareness but also for those who still nonchalant, that still prioritize the cheap price. Therefore, we need a source of funding, and we also need to have an instrument that make the authentic batik price could compete to the cheap counterfeit batik. Therefore, for the expansion of this blockchain, we need a luxury tax program that will be applied to the imported, only to the imported batik, semi-batik, and fabrics with batik-like patterns with at least 70% similarity. And the luxury tax revenue will be allocated for the incentive for the small businesses. To implement this luxury tax, then we need some adjustments to the laws, for example, to the government regulation number 61/2020, that we need to add a new group with a 10% rate specifically for batik. And then we also need to give adjustment to the Minister of Finance regulations number 96/2021 that already revised by the 15/2023, that we need to include the batik in the annex listing. Then we can use the Minister of Finance Regulation 81/2024 as our reference regarding what categories of batik that we could implement for this luxury tax. But if I may suggest, that we hope that this luxury tax not only implemented to several fabrics but also to all fabrics, because what we are trying to achieve is that we want to value the pattern that has a great art sense. However, I do recognize that there are pros and cons regarding this suggestion. Therefore, for the very realistic option is that we could implement this luxury tax only for those who have satin and silk materials. So it still be able to play a role as the income for the domestic small batik business incentives. Next up, we will discussing about the SMART, but as a specific and also acceptable have been mentioned before. Now these are the rest. For the measurable, we have 4 criteria, and for the realistic is based on the budget is it is a negligible proportion from the budget of the Kementerian. And the last is about time bound that I will be explained later. This is a time bound that I mean. Overall, for all of them, we need only about 1 to 2.5 years, plus 3 years of implementation that we will monitorize before we implement it to the other small businesses, before we decided to expand the Batik blockchain. And these are the stakeholders. Of course, it is not limited to only the stakeholders, because there will be a lot of people will engage here, especially the NGOs and communities, to socialize regarding the Batik blockchain and also why it is important to protect our authenticity of Batik. And that's all for the presentation. Thank you.
Very much, Sabrina. So now, now we will hear commentaries from the panelists. I will give the floor first to Dr. Choki. Your time.
Thank you, Sabrina, for your presentations. It's really exciting. It's a new thing. That's why I ask simple, basic thing. Please educate and enlighten me about the blockchain and how are you going to use blockchains to store the database and then verify, the designs, the patterns, and the owners of the property rights of those designs.
Thank you, Bang Choki, for the question. So regarding the blockchain, is a technology using crypto technology that it is actually connected from the previous block. So if we input a data to a blockchain, then the block will be connected to the previous block, making it immutable, couldn't be changed, because if we change the one block, then the other will be also impacted. Therefore, the blockchain have a positive thing that we implement to this is that it is safe for the data that is inputted, because as we know, the motives of Batik have the right of the creator. Therefore, if we use blockchain, then it will be hard for those who want to duplicate it or want to change the data in the blockchain. Therefore, it will be safe for the data protection inside of the blockchain. Next, regarding the blockchain is that it is pretty affordable too, because one token of blockchain only costs about in rupiah about 6,500 rupiah for a blockchain. Therefore, it is also affordable and not giving an impact to the budget. And about the verification, we need to connect the blockchain with Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things will help us to have the search engine. Through the Internet of Things, we can do verification. We can also search for the criteria that we want. So not only the picture, but we could also insert some keywords to the blockchain. So the search engine, which is the IoT itself, could search inside of the database of the blockchain.
Thank you for your answers. But please walk me through the submissions or the uploading or inputting the data. So where are you gonna get the informations or data about the pattern from? Is it from the Ministry of Law about the property rights, or is there any community or associations who register all the patterns in Batik Indonesia? And please walk me through how are you gonna input those data? And when you mention we, who are we? Is it the government? Is it the people who owns the right?
Thank you, Bang Choki. The first data that we can gather is from the database that Kementerian Perindustrian already have. The Kementerian Perindustrian already record that there are about 5,849 Batik patterns. So we can just input those data into the blockchain. Other than that, we could also look up from the DJKI database that there are a lot of Batik patterns that just newly created by each person in Indonesia. So it could be applied to the data blockchain as well. Other than that, we could also try to figure it out because, of course, not all of the creator already registered to the DJKI. Therefore, there will be communities that will collaborate with Kementerian Perindustrian to actually look to the markets and ask the batik artisans, are they already registered the motifs or not? After, if they know that there are still amount of batik patterns that's still not registered, then they will help the registration process through DJKI, and DJKI will give the data to Kementerian Perindustrian, and Kementerian Perindustrian will input the data to the blockchain.
Okay. My next questions is regarding the productions of pattern. You mentioned that batik is what do you call it? So UNESCO recognized batik as Indonesians, what do you call it, heritage or something like that. In producing batik pattern, is it exclusive rights for Indonesians, or is other foreign nationals also can produce the batik pattern as well?
Thank you, Bang Choki. First is that it is the exclusive right of Indonesia to produce the real batik from the domestic producers. However, we couldn't deny that the globalization made this barrier seems isn't there. Therefore, there are also plenty of batik producers outside of Indonesia, but therefore we could do something and create a policy to prevent them to do something that we do not want. For example, through this luxury tax, we could implement a regulation that makes them couldn't do much things regarding the batik because it's restrictions from us as the exclusive right isn't with us. Thank you.
And how do you respond, or how do you so one of the blockchain's characteristic or features is, as far as I know, is decentralized. It means people from around the world could verify, check, and input the data. And is your blockchain still decentralized?
Thank you.
If yes, and then how do you balance the rights for other foreign nationals in producing batiks and also protecting domestic interests, as your proposal or writings mentioned?
Thank you, Bang Choki. Of course, that is a characteristic of blockchain, which is decentralized. But this decentralized means that only those who have the access who can input the data and do some changes to the data. For those who don't have the access, then they could do nothing. But this decentralized system is actually benefits us because people, whoever they are around the world, can see if there is a change in the data that we are inputting, but they could do nothing to input it. So they just could see but do nothing. So it's probably more like a view-only system other than they can do changes. Therefore, it's still safe for the data protection.
Okay, so your blockchain is exclusively also run by Indonesians?
For the codification, yes, it is exclusively run by the Kementerian Perindustrian.
By the government?
By the government. But for the supply chain record, then each producer will create their own blockchain system and they just give access to the government of Indonesia.
And I don't know, in computer engineers or software developers community, is it allowed for blockchains can only be managed by one country or one national, or should it be decentralized?
Thank you, Bang Choki. That is also one of the concern because the regulation regarding this blockchain usage is still minimum. Therefore, it is hard to find such laws. But regarding what we have now, it is still allowed as long as it is still not regulated, or it is hardly to find the regulation back.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all from me. If you have more technical questions, I would like to get, be educated about these blockchains.
So now I will give the floor to Professor Ari first. Then we move to Aksara.
Okay, Sabrina. Yeah, thank you very much for your interesting idea regarding protecting, yeah, our heritage. Technical things about blockchains have been asked by Dr. Choki. I would like to inquire more on the impact, yeah, to what of your suggestion regarding the behavior, yeah, the ones that you have mentioned to the Indonesian consumer. Don't you think that let's say if we registered, okay, and as for the luxury tax, yeah, we know that not all of the imported batik is, well, you can say, even though it's counterfeit, even though it's copying, but sometimes they're in a better quality. Yeah. So, if you're saying that Indonesian people would rather choose the cheaper ones than the more expensive, right? So by giving this additional tax, so will you expecting that this behavior would be in direction of your proposal? That's my first question, please.
Okay, thank you, Professor. For the question regarding the impact of the behavior is that, of course, it will give additional price for the first time, but after that, we implement the luxury tax that the revenue will be allocated to give incentive to the businesses. Then we hope that the price wouldn't be more, but we hope that it still reduce the price. Even from the previous one, it could be cheaper, perhaps from the luxury tax itself. And regarding the better quality from the imported batik and other fabrics, is that of course this will create a healthy competition instead, because people could choose which one they want to buy, either the cheap one or the quality one. But what we're discussing here is actually more regarding the originality of the pattern. So as long as those imported batik have an original and correct usage of patterns, that it will be allowed from us, because it will not giving an attack to the originality of our batik. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Hopefully it goes with what you have proposed. Yeah. Another thing, because you're saying that about imported batik, so we're talking about trade with other countries,
Yes.
right? Have you ever considered that putting special tax on imported items, yeah, would be in a way could violate our commitments under the WTO rules, yeah, because it can be regarding as discriminatory barrier, yeah, towards a certain items, yeah. So, will you argue this as a, I don't know, cultural protection measures rather than a trade barrier in accordance with, well, what other country will say about it? Okay. As a follow-up on that one, yeah. Let's say with your theory of what, sovereignty,
Sovereignty.
right? So we can make laws on whatever we want, okay? But you have to be aware that other countries have their own sovereignty, that they will act on something that they will think that they are you are hurting our trade flows, okay? So that there will be possible of retaliatory action, yeah. Just like we saw from the drama between U.S. and Canada, for example, right? they where Canada retaliate towards the U.S. But can you think of this risk where, for example, China will retaliate Indonesia? Maybe not on the same items on textile, but maybe could other area as well, where we are in so much depend on China, right? Okay.
Thank you, Professor, for the question. I have considered this issue as well, but what I think is that we already enacted the Permendag 8 2024 that give a lot of relaxation to the imported commodities, including batik. Therefore, to balance that relaxation, we could also implement this luxury tax. Therefore, I think that is still a balance, not that discriminative to the outside products from Indonesia. Other than
How can you say that it's not discriminatory?
Thank you, sir. In my opinion, because we already relax but also we give them an additional price, but it will not really make them hard to import because they just need to pay some amount of money. And the number of the luxury tax is also a little for 10% only. So we hope that it's still not a big issue for implementing this luxury tax.
10%?
Yes.
10% of additional tax luxury.
Yes.
So I would argue that it will violate the national treatment principle because you differentiate between the locals and the non-locals. What do you say about it?
Thank you, Professor. This also has become my consideration as well. Therefore, in the page, one of the page in luxury tax, I have mentioned that the second option of this plan is to only implement the luxury tax to the batik, semi-batik, and batik-like pattern with silk and satin materials, which are considered as luxury and have been regulated in our digital law, which is the law number 8, 1983, which state that some products already considered as luxury. For example, it is not a basic needs consumed by certain communities and showing status. Therefore, I believe that national and also worldwide will believe that this is luxury goods and they will understand it.
Okay, thank you. But one more thing, I just want to give you an idea of strengthening the protection. Have you ever considered about certification of geographical indication?
Yes, I have read a lot of journals regarding the certification for educational geographic, but it has been applied in several regions in Indonesia. Therefore, I do not bring it up into the table in here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you.
Now I give the floor to Aksara first.
Okay, thank you so much, Sabrina, for your presentation. I believe this is very unique and very you. You have conducted a lot of research relating to this batik, and I believe that you have a big concern towards this specific issue. Okay, let me begin by questioning how could applicable this blockchain system and the luxury tax for the small businesses. You mentioned in your paper that it takes around 1 to 2.5 years to implement. I'm afraid it is not 2.5 years because you need to ensure that all of the small businesses from all over Indonesia could apply this system. My question is, how would your strategy to ensure that each of small businesses that produces batik understand about this blockchain system and they could implement it themselves?
Thank you, Aksara, for the question. First of all, sorry for the misunderstanding inside of my paper. The 1 to 2.5 years is actually only for the first phase of the batik blockchain, where it is only applied to the big businesses of Indonesia, which only account for about 5 to 10% in Indonesia, and also the foreign producers that also produce batik outside of Indonesia. Therefore, for the small businesses, we will take the other consideration. So after the 1 and 2.5 years of the implementation of the first phase of Batik blockchain, we will have a 3 years of monitoring. So in that 3 years, we will monitor the pros and cons regarding the implementation of this Batik blockchain and what evaluation that we need to do before expanding to the small businesses. Therefore, in these 3 years, I believe the well-established producers in Indonesia already know how to prevent the bad negative impacts and also how to make this available for the small businesses. Other than that, in these 3 years, we also have implemented the luxury tax as our income. So that income will be available enough and after 3 years for the small businesses to run the blockchain system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The most interesting part of this program is that we need to ensure that this is not only applicable but also useful or impactful for the small businesses. Because earlier in your presentation, you also mentioned about the employment that majority of the employment that created from this batik industries are from small businesses. I think you need to further clearer about your implementation strategy. How would the small business understand the idea of blockchain? That's my very question.
Thank you, Aksara, for the question. To make sure that the small businesses understand the implementation of the small businesses, then we need a lot of socialization. As I mentioned before, we can use it through social medias, but of course for small businesses, it will be hard for them to understand from only social medias. Therefore, we also will have a regular communication with Batik community and also other NGOs, for example, the Association of the Batik Artisans in Indonesia, so they can have a face-to-face socialization and trainings to the small businesses, so they will understand how to apply this website and also this kind of technology before applying it to the real life later.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it requires a lot of collaborations with local communities and
right.
local government. But let me proceed to the next chapter of my question. It is about the compliance, and just I want to make it clear that my question will focuses on the sanction for the non-compliance. Supposed to be this program is acceptable and it is implemented by years, and every one of small businesses have implemented this. How is your step to to give some kind of sanction or just general consequence for those who don't comply for this system?
Thank you, Aksara, for the question. For the compliance first is regarding to the big businesses first, because they are considered as the well-established companies, then they will be under the laws of social responsibility law. It means that they need to do some CSR programs regarding the culture, and it will be there. The Batik blockchain is in the CSR program itself. So about the sanction, that we will just follow the CSR rule of law, and there are a lot of administrative sanctions that will be implemented to them. And for the small businesses, they are actually will face a general sanction by themselves without we need to do anything, because if they do not use this Batik blockchain program, then the consumers, especially those who already have the awareness of the Batik blockchain, will think that this business do not create the original Batik, because they do not have the Batik blockchain QR code, of course. Therefore, it will impact their own business if they do not comply with this program. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because you put the consumers into consideration. What if, I don't know, whether this is real or not, but how if the consumers don't come from the community as you do, that is have a lot of concerns about batik, and they don't care if the batik is original, authentic, or counterfeit, as you would say. From the law perspective, could you give any certainty of law that could sanction the businesses that don't comply for this?
Thank you, Aksara, for the question. I believe about giving a sanction to those who do not comply with the programs regarding the protection for our heritage. It's come from the law number 5, 2017. It is about the advancement of our cultural heritage, where that law is still giving us guidance regarding how to make our heritage is more developed and how to make them comply to it. If we don't, unfortunately, I do not have any enough research regarding this law, but I would say that that law is actually our guidance.
No. I'm not asking about the law that has existed for now. What is your vision to create some kind of law to regulate if there is any violation to the blockchain system? And how would that law says?
If I may to propose a regulation regarding the sanction, then I will say that it will be an administrative sanction. So probably they could freeze for the most hard sanction is that they could freeze the production of the company's batik, because if they don't freeze it, then it will be a trap for the people to differentiate between the original and not original ones. But for the one that is not that hard, we could just giving a letter for them for about 3 times, so they could know and they have time to implement the program before. Thank you.
Yeah. But my concern is that the small businesses don't have a licensing, mechanism, as if the middle or the large scale of businesses have. So, would you consider criminal sanction for this?
I do not think that criminal sanction is the great option, because what we need to do is a soft approach, because they are small businesses and they need a lot of education from us. So we cannot do something hard to them. We need to do a soft approach to them. Therefore, administrative implementation of sanction is the correct one, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. This, I think will be my last question. It is about the you mentioned about your collaboration with DJKI, if I'm not mistaken, and it is the DJKI role is just to inform the industrial ministry whether or not there is any batik to put into the blockchain system. Why don't you consider that DJKI could have more role to ensure the authenticity of the batik from giving it the intellectual property rights? Thank you.
Thank you, Aksara, for the question. Of course, the DJKI first role is to give information regarding the data of the pattern to the Kementerian Perindustrian to input to the blockchain. Other than that, in the process of before the implementation, of course, there will be a planning stage, where in that stage, the DJKI, Kementerian Perindustrian, and any other ministries in Indonesia that is stated in my paper will have a discussion regarding which is considered as the real batik, which has a real certified license for that batik pattern, and which are not. Therefore, the DJKI, of course, have a bigger role rather than just giving information to the Kementerian Perindustrian, because DJKI will also give it's kind of a permission to, okay, Kementerian Perindustrian, you may to put this into the blockchain.
Yeah, one follow-up. Let me get this straight. What I mean by further role for this DJKI is that this is the institution that concerns about the intellectual property rights. You know, other instrument of intellectual property rights, there's patent, there's copyrights and industrial design or something. Would you consider these instruments to put as the continuation of this blockchain system? So the batik that has already registered in the blockchain could further have the intellectual property rights. I don't know if it's industrial design. Maybe industrial design is the most, the best intellectual property rights to protect the batik. What do you think?
Thank you, Aksara. That is actually a good suggestion. Of course, I would love to make DJKI will also have that role to give certification and license and any other rights regarding the intellectual property inside of the batik blockchain. But some of them could not give intellectual property only for a person, because some of batik pattern is actually the collective property. Therefore, the property belongs to the state. Therefore, for that criteria, we couldn't give any property for individual person. But for the others, I would be agree with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all from me. Thank you.
So even though Bu Theo didn't get the chance to observe the full presentation, I will still give the floor to you, Ms. Bu Theo. You may give some comments.
Sabrina, I have to apologize that I come late, so I'm not seeing your presentation, but I do have a question. Is reading your conclusion part when you say about the introduction of a luxury tax to batik, I have to apologize if it's been already questioned by someone else, but I'm intrigued about the luxury tax for batik because batik, as we know, is something that connected to our culture and close to everyone else. So can you explain about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Theo, for the question. Regarding luxury tax, we just gonna implement this to the imported ones, imported batik, semi-batik, and any other fabrics that have similar pattern, 70% similarity with the batik pattern. And those who got the luxury tax will only be those who imported, so it comes from the outside of Indonesia. Then the luxury tax will have a 10% rate of tax that will be implemented to each of the production of batik. And we could also implement the silk and satin fabric as the luxury. So we could also claim the satin and silk is considered as luxury because it is consumed by a certain communities, and also it is not a basic need, and it is showing status as explained in the explanation of Article 5 of the Law Number 8, 1983. Thank you.
Thank you. So it is more to the material rather than the motif itself?
Thank you, Bu. So actually, in the first idea, it will be the whole batik, the batik pattern from any other fabrics. Unfortunately, there are so many pros and cons regarding this idea. Therefore, the realistic one is that just implementing to the fabrics aspect, the satin and the silk fabrics.
So we still have 9 minutes left. Do you want to still use it or just skip it? I think okay. Okay, thank you very much, Sabrina. So this is the end of your presentation. We wish you the best of luck for your Mapres 2025. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hmm? Ya, hasil tunet ini yang ada cover. Yang ini. Yang ada cover bahasa Indonesia itu. Ini hasil AI. You can take your time, don't worry. So for the upcoming presenter, we will have Adventius Emmanuel. So please, but he is making sure everything. Okay. So Noel is bringing Toto again. His name is Toto, right? Yo-Yo, I'm sorry. Yo-Yo. But we wait for a minute since Bang Chok is outside. So yeah, make yourself comfortable, Noel. Okay.
Can I give a minute to prepare some prophecy?
Yes. Don't worry. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And before that, good evening, everyone, distinguished judges, and also all the panelists. Before we begin, I permit to distribute the prototype of Ruang Aman that showcasing this is a tangible action and also solution. And also, I believe that the innovation is something that we can change, something that we can build, and something we can see. Thank you.
Okay, you may all pass. Can't help him.
Maybe while I'm preparing some property in the front, we can explore the module first and see some of the feature in there. Thank you so much.
So Noel, just please tell us if you are ready, okay? Okay, am I audible? Okay. So, Noel, just to remind you again, you still have 15 minutes, just like you did in Bahasa presentation, and after that we will have 45 minutes of discussion from all the panelists. And I think if you're ready, we can start. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I will start the presentation in 1, 2, 3.
Hello everyone, my name is Yo-Yo. I have a good friend, then let's call him N. N was a cheerful and also fabulous kid. He likes to play marbles and also, but one day, everything changed. There is one friend that touched N in a way that no child ever should be experienced. And everything changed. The eyes and also the smile in Anne's eyes is dimmed. Not only he is lost his trust, but also he lost his confidence to this world.
This is a story of thousands of children whose childhood stolen by the sexual violence. But they not only a victim, they also can be the perpetrators. Yes, you heard it right. They become the perpetrators of the sexual violence. When Nelson Mandela said that children are the promise of our present and also the architect of our future, we should ask ourselves, how can they build their future when they trap in trauma, violation, and also violence? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, and greetings to all of us. Here, with the great enthusiasm and also hope, I am Emmanuel, a 2023 Law Faculty student of Universitas Indonesia, with a great hope and determination, present to you Ruang Aman. Our rehabilitation scheme for juvenile sex offender in special determination and also institution through the implementation of module based on gender responsive, neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavioral change, and art therapy. Ruang Aman exists because N is not alone. Let's look to the data. in just the first 2 months of 2025, there are 5,248 cases in the violence against children, while 1,629 of which were sexual violence. This is approved in the Symphony PPPA. But children, again, are also the perpetrators. Currently, there are 25,034 children within the correctional system, while in the Juvenile Detention Center, or next we call it LPKA, at least in the Tangerang and also Jakarta, 50% of it is the sexual violence detender. And this is raised a crucial issue. Why children are committed to sexual violence? The answer, there are two main factors. The first factor is from the internal, and the second factor is from the external. From the internal itself, many children are influenced by the pornographic content. They really need to rebuild their mind and also their brain by the therapy. And second, there is also the past trauma. Not every children really want to be the perpetrators, but some children are getting triggered because they become the victim in the previous experience. So by healing this, we will break the chain. And the second factors and the external factors, in the teenage phase, actually peer pressure will playing so hard. They become be normalized and also pushed, even encouraged to do the same in this context as the sexual violence. So making the clarification of the stigma and also the behavior is the key. And also second, there's also the cause of the field of social reintegration by discussed with Mrs. Eva Kasuma. In some cases, there are participants, also juvenile offender, that they are intendedly to doing that because they want to back to the system in the LPKA, because they feel safer in the system rather than they are in the society. So this is a signal for us to having and also renew the mechanism that not only heal them, but also make them ready to come back to the society. And based on the crisis and also status quo, our government and also society have already made many efforts. For example, for the past 4 years, I already collaborate with the BKKBN, or the Body of Family Planning, as a facilitator and also peer counselor of the module Tentang Kita. But again, this initiative will concern in the prevention and also victim recovery. The discussion on rehabilitating the offenders really just a few. But the question again, how the situation in the LPKA, it can be illustrated like this capsule or this medicine. In a house, there is some people that are diarrhea, cancer, and also fever. But they give the same medicine, which is paracetamol. While it is effective for the fever, this is really ineffective for the one that having the cancer and also diarrhea. This is the status quo that we can see in the LPKA, at least in the LPKA Tangerang and also Jakarta, where there is no specialized treatment for different types of offense. The focus they are focusing is solely on education, also about the arts, also religious activity. This one size fits all really not effective. Besides, it's also contradict with the principle of the best interest of the child. This is also not solving and also heal the root trauma of the sexual violence itself. And without the proper rehabilitation, the risk of recidivism will be higher, which is 60%. And later, it will be also impacted the economic sector. While in the US and in the UK, they have to pay like 30 billion USD for the reoffender. Then, by all the consequences and also the problem, I found there is one outline and also fundamental problems and also fundamental solution, which is a mechanism and also scheme for the structural rehabilitation. Our rehabilitation should be specialized, personalized, and also have a long-term impact that they will be effective from their successful rehabilitation outcome, efficient budget, reduce the recidivism rate, and also a safer, even more stable community. This is exactly what we can see in the Germany and also in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, they having the specific intervention using CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, where the CBT focus on reshape thoughtful patterns, and also they're not only stopped in the rehabilitation, they will continue to having the counseling by having the counseling post the rehabilitation in the treatment centers. The impact is so significant. While the specialized in the sexual violence, the recidivism is 12%, while the general one is 32%. And how about the Germany? The Germany also having the specialized and personalized approach. While before the rehabilitation in the Germany, they will have like assessment and also the personalized risks and also needs assessment to determine what is the most effective and also sufficient intervention plan. And this is also what exactly what will be appear in Indonesia, where Ruang Aman is the solution for Indonesia. Ruang Aman is the new mechanism program that designed to restore the juvenile sex offender in LPKA by multidimensional approach. This is from the gender responsive. There is also art therapy, the cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, and there is neurolinguistic programming or NLP that we will discuss all in the all module 1, 2, and also 3. And distinguished judges, Ruang Aman will be structured and also implement with a very comprehensive systematic. The first one, we will start with building a core development team, like we also will invite the academia and also lecturer in here, where a dedicated team of key stakeholders will build the module and also will design the rehabilitation. And after that, after we already produce the module, we will also having the training on trainers, while the core team before will be implement the module to the next facilitator, where the next facilitator is the LPKA staff and also the teenager and so young, age 16 until 25 and until 24. This training will talking about the execution methods and also how the simulation action, so it can be ensured that the next facilitator will can have a significant and also having a tangible realization on how the juvenile sex offender they will be facilitator. And also, furthermore, after the module already appear and also the facilitator already trained, we will implement the module of Ruang Aman that having the 3 core modules and also there is 15 structural sessions. And eventually, to making it more developed, we will having a monitor and also evaluation based on the 2 key factors. The first one is the recidivism rate, and the second one is about the knowledge of improvement. And now, let us examine the implementation of Ruang Aman. Before the implementation of the module Ruang Aman, we will have the screening and also identification, where the facilitator can identify during assessment in the direct assessment or doing having observation during the court or criminal justice system, where this, or we can call it module 0, will having the identification of identity, character, background, education, and all the aspects that we can see in this slide to determine the intervention level, how to implement the module and also the duration, also how the media it can be used. After we having the systematic plan, then we can ensure and also deep dive into module 1, which is Kenali, that there in the Ibu Theo and also Bang Aksara. Module Kenali will talking about how they can rebuild their knowledge about sexual and health reproduction, and also about sexual violence and also gender equality. They can be see in all of the session. Then from the session 1, we want to distribute the information about how the rehabilitation will come. And the session 2, we will having the difference between the gender, sexuality, and sex by they giving the putting the post-it in the masculine and also the feminine one, so they will be separate what is actually the biological factor and also what is the gender factor and the societal factors. And the session 2 and the session 3, they will discuss about their body change during the puberty. So during the change, they will identify what is the characteristic of the man body and also the woman body, and also they will identify what is the risk that they will face during their these adolescents, including if they are doing the sex activity. And also the fourth and also the fifth, they will talking more about the sexual violence. They will having a counter and also having the clarification about the factor of consensual. In the inside of the pitch that it should be having a consent, and the outside the pizza is they talking about what is don't need the consent. And later, after all the module, all the facilitator also will have the key message to having the clarification. And after we're talking about the module 1, we will jump next into the module 2, which is module Berani that appear in the table of Prof. Ari. This module Berani using the art therapy, which the art therapy it using for having the conclusion and also rehabilitate the trauma from the previous experience that trigger people and also offenders to doing the sexual violence because they become the victim before. And the first one, in the session one, we will have the body mapping to identify that they have the problems in their body and also they have the tense in their body by coloring some part that they think they have the trauma in there. And also the next one, after they already identified that there is actually the problem in their body, they will claim it and also they will accept it by they writing the letter to their younger self by this letter. And after they accept it, they will also facilitate to having a new life one to bridging to the module 3, which they will have the identification of how the future they will want to have in the next agenda and also the next phase of their rehabilitation. And the next module, which is the module 3 that appear on the Bang Choki table, we will talking about how they can help to rehabilitate, to having help them to also make them more ready to get productive again and also re-socialize again with the society. Where the first one, we will tackle the stigma and also their anxious about the society perspective by having the bubble things. And after that, we will guide them to know their strengths, also their weakness, by using these 5 fingers to identify the strengths, weakness, and also the plan, and also the dream that they want. Until then, in the last, they will having the systematic plan by using this road life map plan that every year they will put and also have the facilitation on how their life will to going by the strengths and also their weakness. And after that, in this final session, in the session 5, we will open again the capsule module, or also the capsule time, that having the intervention of how the successful treatment of the juvenile sex offender. And to ensure that Ruang Aman will implement in the good way and also systematic way, we will having this holistic approach and also collaboration, start from the central government and also the local government to having the facilitation and also donors, and also the donors also can come from the international organization like UN agencies and also can build the module systematic. And also the third and also the fourth one will focus on the implementation and also building the module, which will invite all the academia and also later they will having the youth-led organization to the implementation. And for making Ruang Aman tangible and to solving them into reality, we will have a year pilot project that will be implemented in the LPKA Jakarta and also Tangerang. After that, we will plan from the monitoring. But before monitoring, we will have the preparation to making the model into a tangible action. And we want to make it more ambitious. So our future plan until 2030, we want to expand the scale into the national implementation. From the implementation, we want to implement in all LPKA across Indonesia. On the target, we want to invite family to having the participation in the rehabilitation, and in the partnership we want to having also like a Germany that having a post rehabilitation in collaboration with Bapas. And also the last, we want to make Ruang Aman also collaborate as an alternative in the criminal sentences, which is with use the non-persecution base, so making the Ruang Aman as an alternative. And I believe that Ruang Aman with a systematic approach, they will have also systematic solution, which they will tackle the lack of rehabilitation, the lack of sexual health reproduction, and also their trauma by having the modul Kenali and also Berani. And they also, Ruang Aman will tackle their failure of recidivism because they are not feeling safe in the society by modul Beraksi. This is also can help Indonesia to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals point 16.2 and 16.36, and also this will be impacted the SDGs point 4 and also SDGs point 3. And if you remember, and in the first line of the story, line N is now can present in front of us that N itself also have the courage to forgive the juvenile sex offender. But why I can hear and so stand here today, because I want a lot of perpetrators to be healed, and I don't want to many children to face what is and also faced when they are childhood. So I want to encourage all of you to support Ruang Aman, one generation, one class, one step forward to a safer world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noel. Now we'll move to the discussion, and we will hear the first comment from the panelists, who is, I think, we will give the floor to Professor Ari first.
What we should call you?
Noel.
Noel. Okay. Noel, thank you very much for your presentation. Before that, I would like to ask you, so all of these things and this idea is all by yourself?
All by myself, and especially for the cover is actually helped by ChatGPT.
Okay. Because I saw this, there's a Kelurahan Abadijaya. So what does that mean?
So actually, the template is based on our previous community service program, and maybe I forget to delete it from the book. I'm so sorry about it.
But all of this content is all by yourself?
All by myself, and also by the discussion by Ibu Natalina, and also all the lecturer in the HMP sector.
Okay, good. Well, I don't know. Well, I have very limited knowledge about these things, okay, but I do really appreciate that that you have worked on this one, and I hope this should not stop, even though you have finished this selection, okay. I do think that this is very important to develop, yeah, and more importantly, be implemented, okay. So do not stop, even though after this, okay, right. So I just want to clarify some things. Yeah, you have mentioned that you make a comparison with
Germany and also Netherlands.
And the Netherlands. Yeah. First, why you chose these two countries? Yeah, and how can you measure or indicate the success of reducing recidivism, yeah, by looking at these two countries? Yeah, that's first one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for the question and also the concern during the Netherlands and also the Germany. For the first question, why actually the Netherlands and also the Germany? Because I see at first, before choosing the Netherlands and also Germany, I want to see which country also having and also facing the problems of their child, also having doing a sexual violence. And the higher rate is in the Netherlands and also in the Germany, that both of them in the Europe as well. And by seeing that, they are in the Europe. Yeah, one of the highest in the Europe as well. So by the indicator of the highest in the Europe, they're having the juvenile sex offender, and also the second, I can see that they have the personalized approach, which is in the Netherlands. I can tell it later. But by two of the factors, by they having the highest highest juvenile sex offender, and also they have personalized approach, this also can lead to the success of the recidivism rate in the Netherlands, especially where in the Netherlands they have the personalized approach by having the CBT. They focus on how to rebuild the brain and also the mindset of the juvenile sex offender. But they're not only stop there; they're also having the post rehabilitation method that Indonesia don't have. They have the post-rehabilitation, especially the counseling in the treatment center that they're in the Germany and also in the Netherlands. And also, especially in the German, they have a really significant and authentic approach where they not only having a one-fit solution, but they at the first they having the personalized and also identification. They having the observation and also assessment with all the juvenile sex offender before, so they will formulate the module and also the approach after they having the assessment. So that I will also implement in the module 0. And also talking about the indicator of success, by having the personalized and also the CBT, especially in the Netherlands, it showed that it is for the sexual violence, the recidivism is only 12%, while in the another general convicted and also criminal crime, their rate is 32%. So we can see for the context as well, the general and also the other criminal crime, there are just generalized the treatment. They don't have the specific one. They only have the specific one. As far as as my research is from the juvenile sex offender, and it's 12%, while the others is 32%. So I can conclude by having the personalized and also comparative to the Germany and also the Netherlands is so effective.
Thank you. My last and my second and my last inquiries. Since you're focusing more on the offenders, right, which is quite anti-mainstream because everyone usually talks about the victims, yeah. How could you possibly see the resistance, yeah, from all the stakeholders that might be have a differing opinions on what you're proposing? So I don't know how to say this, but would you rather to see to make advocacy to the urgency of paying attention also to the offenders, and then you move on to this to your proposal here? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Actually, if we're talking about how we can make a collaboration or cooperation with all the stakeholders that want to collaborate and also build this ruang aman, we can see that some of them is separate and also have a differentiation. Like in the central government and also the local government, they will focus more on the implementation to support the implementation and also building the module. But building the module, they will focus on serving the facilitator. Well, who's the facilitator is the LPKA staff itself, and also the others like the youth-led organization. They will focus on be the mentor of the children and also the implementator. And the other one, like the academia, also the expert, especially as a counselor, it will be focused on the model development, focus on the methods and also the media. And after that, there's also the international organization as a donors and also contributor of the module, but will focus on how they will integrate with the international agreement or also like the best interest of the child. And also, if we can see appear in there, we will make a coalition with the driven same value to the prosperity of the children. So by having the coalition, I believe that all of the stakeholders will have the same value and also purpose to saving our children, especially in here is the offenders itself. And by having the terms and also the mechanism of coalition, that will maybe solve and also mitigate the problems that they will have the conflict of interest, they will have a different perspective. So by having the coalition, it is an effective way. And also for the second question, are we gonna intervene as well about for the victims after we are going to the offenders? Actually, we will focus more on the offenders until the last. Where if we are talking about the future plan, after we are focused on the offender itself from the Ruang Aman as a pilot project, we will expand it to also invite and also collaborate with the family to can intervene and also contribute to the rehabilitation, where there's two mechanisms. First, we can also rehabilitate the family, where we are reach out the family, we are talking to the family. Or second, the family also can take a part in the session of the module, especially the module that having the yo-yo. This is the session 4 in the module 2 that will talking to yo-yo as a illustration of the person, but by integrating with the family, they will change yo-yo. Maybe we don't use yo-yo again later, but they will talk to the family face by face or with another mechanism. Like what I ever experienced is back to back, so they're not not directly talking. And also one of the biggest reason why we don't focus on the victim, because as we can see, there's a lot of intervention and also solution that already served by the community and also government that focus on the victim itself. Like UTPK is also already giving the like subside and also the money for they going to the counselor, but they don't even have a discussion about the rehabilitation of the juvenile. And also in the NGO and as a community, like my previous experience 4 years as a peer counselor and as a facilitator in the model tentang kita, I think it's already enough to we are talking about the victim, and also we can expand to the more detailed one. So I think to see a whole perspective while we also push another solution to walk side by side, I think it's really will be fair and also effective as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all from me.
Now I would like to give the floor to to Bu Teo first. Yeah.
Hi, Noel.
Hello.
Thank you for not just entertaining presentation, but also thoughtful idea for the children, especially for the children of the juvenile sexual offender. My how long you made all of this module?
Okay. For the module, actually, we made at the first is a week because the article is the deadline is only a week, but because the presentation of this English presentation also having time, so for total it comes to 2 weeks to making the module, also the proposal, and also making it into tangible product as well.
And you mentioned you mentioned we.
Yeah.
So you and.
Oh, yeah. This is also helped by the discussion with Ibu Natalina and also all the lecturer in the HMP. But before that, actually, with my previous experience in the module tentang kita, I also having a guidance by some of the friends and also as a fellow facilitator to develop this module, because this module only talking about the victim and also to prevention, but because I want to make the one that having a coercion or maybe the mitigation after they do that. So also I want to claim them as a actor. They play a part in this part of the development of the model.
Okay, thank you. I'm interested. You mentioned that you are one of the volunteers in the LPKA. Is that right?
Actually, not in the LPKA, but I have the volunteer to be facilitator in with the body of family planning of Republic Indonesia BKKBN.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, what makes you want to be the volunteer?
Okay, it starts first in the 2020. Before I become the ambassador, I joined organization. It named Big Air. It's a center of counseling and also for reproduction child or Indonesia. It called Pusat Informasi Konseling Remaja, that in my area. Actually, since 2017, I witnessed there is 4 young locals in my area that moved from, we call it Pisangan Baru, to another city because they did either it is sexual violence, or the second is also the unwanted pregnant, and also the third is they intend to the early child marriage. So by having that trigger, I really want to solve the issue. So that's why at the first I come to the organization in the Big Air, and then after that they recommend me to, because see the passion that I have to become the ambassador of genre ambassador of DKI Jakarta in 2021, and I try to more develop it in my background as well as a law student. I think it can be suited not only talking about the prevention, but the aspect that really suit to law major, which is the perpetrators and also the criminal justice system itself.
Oh, okay. Also, you are, well, are you still the ambassador right now, or?
Yeah, I'm still the facilitator, but currently we have 2 modules actually. The first module is the one that talking about prevention, and the second one we talking more about the life skill like critical thinking, and I be the facilitator of the first module.
Okay, so interesting. So this is all of this. It's like culminated of all of your experience.
Yeah, it's also reflect from the past intervention.
Okay. Now, can I know, like, for how long the duration for each of the phase from the module 1 and until the module 4?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Actually, for the answer that we really encourage and also push the implementation of the principle to having the best interest of the child and also hearing the thoughts of the child. So that's why in the module 0, we will have the screening and identification. And the short answer is actually all module from this module 1 until module 2 and module 3, there is no specific time limitation because they will have an adjustment with all the aspect they already assessed in the first. Maybe some kid will finish the module 1 earlier, only 3 months, or maybe the next kid, the juvenile sex offender, need 6 months because they have a really the bad stigma, and also maybe need a more deeper confirmation about the gender equality itself. So this is really important to can pay attention to the facilitator later pay attention to the module 1 to they have the assessment by doing the observation and also doing the interview to the juvenile sex offender, so later they can formulate the implementation and also the intervention of each module, and one of the aspect and also the factor is the duration of each module, especially the each session.
Okay, thank you. So it's also aligned with when you mentioned this is a personalized program, so
That's
every
very
kids can learn about the module in their own phase.
Their own phase, and also after that, actually the juvenile sex offender will be asked their willingness to participate or not, because some juvenile sex offender maybe will feel really sensitive about some issue, or maybe later the facilitator will find some another method. So if we can see in some module, there is some module and also there's some session, I think in the module 2 or 1 there is some session that having the various activity or the alternative activity. So this is also can be the guidance for the facilitator to choose maybe the first media and also the methods is not effective, and they can serve and also offer another variation that already appear in the module as well.
Okay, thank you. My last question is, you mentioned about to involve the family for the juvenile offender recovery, but from what I know, one of the biggest problem is for the children to involve in the sexual violence or any other kind of criminal is because they lack of the family care and support. And after that, after the children got treatment and everything, the family is also, they not really care, or maybe they care, but they don't have any sufficient resource to help the children. So what do you think about that?
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu, for the concern, and really admit with the condition. And unfortunately, they really, some of the cases that I found is even their family not only don't care, but they don't want to accept the kid again after they already going to the jail or the LPKA. So yeah, I admit that the future plan of the target to having the intervention of the family, it can be helped in the some session, especially to them to talking about what they feel, because maybe some triggered because the previous sexual violence they happened from the family. But also, yeah, I really admit that there will be some risky, maybe the family don't come when the session, or they don't want to having a rehabilitation as well. So except from the family itself, actually there is some another alternative other than family. There's also maybe the relative that maybe they in the house they not live and also stay in the family and in the family house, but maybe in the sister, or maybe rather than sister, the more is in the grandmother. So the sister and also grandmother can be the one that having the intervention and also the collaboration in this module. But where if what is not the family, actually it also can be substituted by the close friends, or even it's not the close friend, it can be also by the LPKA staff itself. So the LPKA staff can substitute the family. So that's why the LPKA staff will be having a training on trainers to be also the facilitator and also the counselor, to having the sense to be a good listener, so they can later substitute their family. And yeah, I really admit the family one is maybe they have contradicts, but also there will be the development, also the substitution of the target as well.
Okay, I will give the floor to Aksar.
Okay, thank you so much, Noel, for your incredible presentation. This is very real as well, and yeah, you've mentioned at the end of your presentation that this is based on your very experience, and I believe it inspires you to be active in this issue, which I appreciated a lot. First of all, let me just, I want to have some alignment with you. Can you go back to the slide that you mentioned about the facilitator?
Oh, for sure. It is in the mechanism.
Okay. For just alignment, who are the facilitator that will involve in this program?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. For the facilitator itself, we can divide it into two. The first facilitator, actually the core team that making the module, it is also can be the academia, the youth-led organization, and also some the representative from the central government and also the local government. This is the first facilitator. That the first facilitator will having the doing a training on trainers to the real facilitator that they will having the implementation to the juvenile sex offender directly, which is there is two. The first one, the LPKA staff, and the second one is the young age 16 until 24. But actually, their function is quite different. The LPKA staff, they will more intense to having the rehabilitation methods, and also this also based on my belief that the one solution that will continue is the one that having the best solution as well, and also to making it continue to having and also collaborate with the actors that work and also live in their entire time. So the one that doing that is the LPKA staff. So after we are having the pilot project, it hope that the LPKA staff will still implement the module. And the second one, the young people aged 16 until 24, it will be adjust as well to the juvenile sex offender age. If they are already 17, so it should be higher, or maybe they are just 13 or 14, it can be the one that's 16. And their function is more focused to be the mentor, to be the one that, if we can see in the some session, there will be a small talk discussion. So they will also help them to having the discussion in the some session, like example in the gender, sex, and also sexuality, so they can share their own perspective in there.
Okay, how do you make sure that the distribution among the facilitator, that is the second type based on your presentation, the young people between the age of 16 to 24, is the right people to be the facilitator of the module? It is because of they previously have implemented this module, or what? How do you ensure that these are the right people to be the facilitator?
Okay, thank you so much for the concern, Bang Asara. And also to make sure that they are the right person is actually in the training on trainers. We have the training on trainers. So in the training on trainers, they will not only talking about the execution methods and also the value of each module, they will talking by the core team to the real facilitator, or we can call it real facilitator. But also in the training on trainers, in the last session, they will have like a simulation action. So for my previous experience as a facilitator as well, to make sure that we can get the certificate at least, or doing the implementation, we have to do the simulation action. So in the last session, all of the facilitator, it can be the one that's 16 until 24, or collaborate with the staff LPKA itself, it doing the simulation action. They can choose either they want to they will divide it first into the group, and the group will implement each module. Like they have 3 groups, so the first group will implement the module 1. In each session, they will be change the actor, the one they want to implement, also be the actor in there to have a role play. So by having the role play in the simulation action, I want to ensure them to so they're already having the capacity to implement later in the real juvenile sex offender.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. The second one would be, okay, here's the case. You mentioned that 3,800 something cases of sexual offense to the child. I'm just curious, how many of these numbers are getting into LPKA? Okay, let's answer that question first.
Okay, thank you so much, Bang Asara. Actually, for answering that, there is no finding that really correlated that showing that these numbers is having and already going to the LPKA itself. But where my finding, I having analytics and also doing some correlation where there's some cases in the violence, and also by having 3 indicators. The first one is the case right now, which in the 2025 there is 1,628, but in the LPK itself already there is 25,034, and there is also more detail into the LPKA 1 Tangerang and LPKA to Jakarta, they having like 50%, and by all the numbers in here, the child protection and also especially in the child protection and also public order, they having the some number, and also it can indicate the first one. Some of them already finished the final and legally binding sentences, and some of them still in the criminal court justice system to having maybe the consideration and etc. So yeah, there is no finding to it, but I try to make a correlation.
Yeah, thank you. Here's my point. Not all of the juvenile sex offender are getting into LPK, whether it is the matter of the law or the matter of the, they're just afraid
Yeah.
to making this case to the court. So they're just saying to parents or teachers. So my next question would be, don't you want to make further collaboration with schools so that the teachers can implement this module to those who are the indicated juvenile sex offender, so it could also be your preventive steps?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. I really appreciate the idea of also collaborate with the schools, and if there's also continue and will be developed, maybe it can also put in the future plan, especially in the collaboration. So not only the post rehabilitation with Bapas, but also the one that Bang Asra already recommend as well, to collaborate with school. So they're not really afraid to giving a report to the school, and the school will also having the report to the criminal, also the LPK, also they will having the rehabilitation as well. This is a really good idea, and thank you. But before that, actually, talking about they really want to having an approach of they just want to have a peace. As actually Ruang Aman already having and revives the principle of restorative justice, that they focus on the rehabilitation over the sanction. So I think by focusing on the restorative justice system, this will prevent, and also they not want to solve the case, and also they don't want to be rehabilitated, because they don't will to punish, but they will rehabilitate in there.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I got the point. When the juvenile sex offender has got already into the LPKA, but my concern is for those who are not yet get into the LPKA, you need to build the system as well in schools, so that teachers could be aware of this module as well. Thank you. Maybe, okay, can you bring me to the slide that you show about the stakeholders?
Yeah, for sure. There is some stakeholders that divide into the some.
Can you name the government institutions? Three of them.
Okay, the three government itself. The first one is actually the development of the Kementerian Hukum dan HAM in the previous one, that now we call it Kementerian Imigrasi and also Pemasyarakatan. And the second one, the Kemen PPPA, the Kementerian Pemberdayaan Pelindungan Anak dan Pemberdayaan Perempuan. And the third one, there's Kemensos, or the Social Ministry. Yeah, the Kementerian Sosial.
Okay. Following up my previous inputs relating to this stakeholder for the government institution, you need to also add the Kementerian Pendidikan Dasar dan Menengah, so that it can be collaborate for schools and teachers, so that they will have this module, at least to socialize that there is a mechanism to to neutralize or to rehabilitate juvenile sex offender. My last question: are you aware that majority of children in Indonesia suffering from game addiction, like Mobile Legend, Free Fire or something? How would you ensure that these books could be implemented as it is you would like it is to function? So they don't just open this book to draw or to scrap the book, but also can be functioning as you wish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the concern, and I actually previous one. I also addict with the game, so I really feel them to having one to maybe a lack of focus in the previous one in the junior high school. So to answer the question, actually to make sure we will maybe the answer for that is in the model 2, which is the Berani one. The Berani one in the some cases the focus is from the art therapy. They will pain and also rehabilitate the trauma, and also they will having the healing from it. The healing is not only about the past trauma, but also to reboot their mind also system, because they are addicted maybe from the pornography and also pornographic content, and also from the game addiction. So I think by the approach from the art therapy itself, it can help them to really have a meaningful action and also meaningful rehabilitation. And in the some session of the Berani session itself, we will also incorporate with song. Like maybe we can making a rehabilitation song and also meditation song. So it indirectly will help them to be more focused and also having the sense of some signal to focus on playing creativity to finish it, and also to make sure they really want to finish it. We having the approach that the approach is not the hard one. So like will coloring these marks in the front, they will talking about how the perception and the inner is how they see themselves. I think it's not really hard to making art and also paint this. So by having the creativity methods and also approach, I think they will, and I believe they really want to finish it. And before that as well, I will also encourage the module 0 again. So when the facilitator found that actually there is a lack of focus, a disease or maybe like a symptoms, they will can also assess in the screening and identification and put them in the module, and in the module, module media and also case study. So make them more meaningful to step by step, also creative and the easy step. So after they realize it, they will can formulate the best solution and also the best intervention as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe that's all for me.
Okay, last but not least, thank you. Thank you, Noel, for amazing and entertaining presentations and also providing us handbook so we can have something on our hands and to read on. Aksara already stole my questions, but I just want to follow up the questions. So, given the fact that the number of the minor serving sentences, most of them are committed of sexual violences. Do you think which one do you think is more effective, giving this rehabilitation program after they committed a crime, or as Aksara pointed out, before the crimes happen?
Okay, thank you so much, Bang Choki, for the question. For my perspective and also some research and finding and also corroborate with the principle of the best interest of the child and etc. I believe that the one for this module and also approach is after they already having the final binding sentences. So because this module will focus on how they're rehabilitated again. The first one also to reboot their mind, also the second to healing their trauma, and after that also to can be productive and also re-socialize again with the society. And if the what if condition, if it is implemented before they are already convicted and the sexual violence, I think the module will not be really effective, because especially in the third module they will focus on reintegrate to the society. When people don't actually having a problem with the social, emotional, and also they don't having a problem of the productivity, to force them to can having the reintegration with the society itself, I think they will be more unrelevant, and during the implementation they will think that they don't have the sense of belonging and also to finish the modules as well, because they don't have the problems. And also I really respect that the prevention is also important. That's why I become the facilitator as well. But talking about the victim recovery and also the prevention, there's a bunch of solution in that. But talking about the rehabilitation of the perpetrators, there's just a few. Even in Indonesia, there is no having a tendency to resolve that. So by choosing the one that really needed to be solved right now, I think modul Ruang Aman will be more focused on the person that already convicted.
thanks for the answer and explanations, and I think you can put that explanation as well in your paper, just to ensure us and to give us justifications why you focus on the convictions or post convictions rehabilitation instead of preventions, because you started your paper with the cases of sexual violence, the high rate of sexual violence, and so we think that should it be better to prevent them, and yeah, so I think it would be better to put that on. And based on your discussion with Aksara, you also had a discussions about restorative justice. Do you think there's still room for module about restorative justice to be put on your module? If so, which module and how?
Okay,
If not, why?
Okay, thank you so much, Bang Choki, for the question. For the RG itself, or restorative justice, is actually will focus on this, will be distributed in all module, because all module is focused on the rehabilitation and also healing rather than just punishment. And I think to answer that, yeah, all module will be implement the restorative justice, but more than that, we want to having the ambition to upskilling the restorative justice to be more not only into rehabilitation, but in the fourth criminal mechanism, we want to making them as an alternative sentencing by also collaborate with the principle of non-persecution. So rather, the restorative justice, that means it's not only about they putting in the jail or LPKA, but also making this module into the alternative sanction as well.
So, do you equate rehabilitation same as the restorative approach?
Oh, actually, it is different, because restorative is the how to approach in the sentencing, and the rehabilitation is after that. But I think restorative justice, as I discussed as well with Ibu Natalina, is not only about the perspective of the victim. So we can also put them to the perspective to the perpetrators to heal them rather than punish.
And so, following up that explanations, how or in actions, how do you restore the relationship between the perpetrators and victims, where the victim has a trauma?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. To having the collaboration actually for the victims itself, in this module, we will actually focus and specify in the perpetrators, not on the victims. And but I realized that one of the key of restorative justice is to can also connect and also making the victim and also the perpetrators talking person by person. So actually, this is not mentioned now in the module, but thank you so much, Bang Choki, for the recommendation. I think it also can be implemented in the module 2, actually in the emotion theater, that actually the emotion theater not only talking with Yo-Yo, but emotion theater not only talking to the family as well, but also by the recommendation, I think the session 4 in the module 2, which is the emotion theater, they also can talking to the victim. Maybe they want to give the explanation. Maybe they want to giving pardon for the victim. And yeah, I think it also can be implemented in the module 2 in the session 4.
And if you put that in the module, how do you consider the victim's feeling, victim's experience?
Okay, for the victim experience, we will also consider will happen in the module 0 as well. So the module, so the module 0 later will the facilitator also will making a mechanism on how actually the victim, the family, and also another facilitator, the young person, they also can collaborate. So this is also can be solved in the module 0, the screening and also identification, especially in the module intervention and also each session. So in the screening and also identification, they also can be put like what we call it lembar curriculum, like we are in the teaching. So each session they will have it, so the facilitator will formulate it later.
Okay, thank you. Probably one additional context. I've seen and heard some of the sexual violence cases involving children. I don't have the exact percentage, but some there's a context or nuances, of course, with the data. And some of the cases that we have analyzed and discussed are where the perpetrators had a relationship with the victims, and then when they broke up, uh, the victim or the victim's parents reported the perpetrators of the sexual violence. So it's quite a tricky. There's a context and nuances. It could be a consent in the actual incidents, in the sexual incidents, but it could be not any consent. But there's a context and nuances that you should take into account. That's why I agree with Aksara. It will be better to prevent. So in getting the consent, they were already equipped in coming to the consent and understand the consequences.
Okay, thank you so much for the recommendation, Bang.
So we still have 5 minutes left. Do the judges want to utilize the remaining time? Okay. So Noel, this is the end of your presentation. Thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck for your Mapres. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And also, for the last statement, Yo-Yo want to say thank you.
Bye, Yo-Yo.